Okay, so this is where we left off. I have one more problem off to the side here. We're in section 3. And the main thing, in case you missed it, is to make sure the index is the same, and you can start putting things together. For instance, this 3 is nothing really we can do there. But what I'm talking about is putting together the 64 divided by 1, still 64. And when you divide, remember you subtract your exponents. So 9 minus negative 1 becomes x to the 10th power. And then 8 minus 2 becomes y to the 6. And we have nothing on bottom. I guess technically we have 1 on bottom, but divided by 1 doesn't actually change the value of anything. So from here, I would just practice 2 and 32. There's probably a faster way of doing this, but we'll stick with this. 2 and 16. We'll do 4 and 4. We have 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. So as far as finding a group of 5 at the bottom of our tree, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we can bring a 2 in front to multiply by that 3. That's why my answer is 6. And then if we count up how many x's we have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we have 2 groups of 5 x's. So we can rewrite x squared in front. If I wrote out all the y's, 5, 6, we have 1 group of 5 y's. And we have 1 left over, but we also have this 1, 2 left over to leave under the radical 5th root of 2y. And that's what we want. So hopefully all of that made sense. If not, write down your question, bring them to class, and hopefully I can answer it then. We're also going to practice the distance formula. I like teaching the Pythagorean theorem to do distance instead of the distance formula. Just makes more sense for students, especially with a visual learner. So what I'm talking about is looking at the ordered pair -3, 7. It's up here, and then -2, 3. And if you create a right triangle, you can identify the lengths of the side, because to get from -3 to -2 means that this side length needs to be 1. And to get from 7 to 3, I know I'm going down, but it's a length of 4. So if I'm asking you for this distance, I'll call it d, it's actually the hypotenuse of a right triangle. It's pretty straightforward for students to recognize it's 1 squared plus 4 squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared. So what we have is 1 plus 16 is 17, and to solve a square problem, use square root. And just go to your calculator and hit the square root of 17. And you get your 3 decimals, 4.123. So the distance is about 4.123. If anybody is curious about how to do this with the distance formula, let me give you the distance formula. It's the square root of y2 minus y1 squared plus x2 minus x1 squared. And it doesn't matter which one's x2 or x1, which one's the first coordinate, which one's the second coordinate, because when you square a positive or negative, you get a positive answer. So if you're doing the problem this way, let me just show you how you would type it in. The square root, I'll just do the 7 first. Oh, and by the way, it doesn't, because addition's commutative, some people write the distance formula with the x coordinates first. I don't know why I start with the y's. But you can see the answer is going to be the same. 7 minus 3 squared. See how I have 4 squared in there? And then -3 minus -2. Now -3 minus -2 would be -1, but when you square -1, you get +1 anyway. So if you type this into your calculator, you'll get the same answer. And along the same lines, this is the same picture, by the way, because it's the midpoint of this line segment. So basically what it boils down to is we want this, what's in the middle of these two endpoints. Now when I think of midpoint, I think of halfway, directly in the middle. In other words, it's the average. And I hope when you hear that, it makes sense that the midpoint formula is that you do the statistical average of the two things. The mean, you add the numbers and you divide by 2. We want halfway between -3 and -2, which is, I hope all of you would agree, that midpoint would be -2.5. And halfway between 7 and 3, I hope you would all agree, is 5. But let me finish this formula. If you don't believe me that that's the right answer, just go ahead and type in these values. Is it true that -3 plus -2, which is -5, divided by 2 gives me -2.5? Yeah, it does. And then same thing with 7 plus 3, the y-coordinates. Just notice that I'm putting them in parentheses because you have to add before you divide. I've seen students not do the order of operations, so they always get it wrong. But it's 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So I did it correctly, and you should be ready to do the homework now. Lots of odds. So, try your best, write down any questions you have, and bring them to class. All right, bye.